Hey, my name is Jared. I am an aspiring animator.
That means I really like movies and TV shows, and I just have a really good time drawing pictures.
And you know what that means? There you go. Perfect. Can't be on this thing without some sort of person to fill the void with that. Anyways, yeah, my name is Jared. I'm an aspiring animator. This is my first 3D animation, and it sucks. It sucks so much. I'm self-taught. I've learned a little bit of 3D modeling, some rigging and animating through Blender because I still gotta eat. I still gotta pay my bills. And you might be wondering, why make a YouTube video about your first animation? Shouldn't this be self-empowering and all that? And I said no. You know, the major lesson of this is that, you gotta embrace your failures. And I'm really hoping that I can be some inspiring, so I can hopefully be inspiring to some people and, help them learn from my mistakes. And honestly, I'm gonna show a couple of small clips that happened during the animation process that, really grinded my gears and made me want to give up as soon as I started.
Fuck!
And throughout this whole process, I'm gonna explain to you how, my thoughts went, or some pros and cons, what I wanted to do, what couldn't happen, what I didn't understand, and all the mistakes along the way. The first step I thought when I learned about this and self-taught myself was to jump into, drum rolls, the concept. Okay, for those who don't know what concept art is basically the first stage in any development in video games and movies, shows. And I got a lot of inspiration from a couple of different sources, but mainly from Instagram by Seth Bennington. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Anyways, you guys should check out their work on Instagram. I'll leave username and stuff on screen so that you guys can check them out. Go give them a thumbs up. They got some awesome work. I really enjoyed, honestly. I was inspired by their work with their original ideas to build new Minecraft golems. Ultimately chose to do the Tundra one instead because A, I'm new to modeling and I didn't want to dive in too deep, and B, I saw a lot of simple shapes, a lot of squares, rectangles, a couple triangles, and a lot of basic shapes that I know I could do in Blender. So I was like, yeah, let's just give it a try, right? Modeling. Modeling is just the process of blocking out or adding different shapes and sculpting them and rearranging them into making them a actual character or getting into the shape of what the figure would look like. And as you can see, I forgot to hit record when I was making the blocking out, so I apologize for that. As you can see, I tried to capture as much of the shapes of the original design as possible. I tried to really capture that big, I don't know what to say, oven door in the middle. I really tried to capture the lower torso where it was shorter and stocky and keep that almost muscular definition of the forearms with the design. Also, big shout outs to 3D Not 2D on YouTube for actually helping me understand how to use Blender, what shapes and what tools could be applied to this model specifically. And ultimately, I watched this whole series about modeling, lighting, materials, and it was really helpful for a beginner like me. And I would recommend. Yeah, so I didn't really record a lot of the blocking out process, so I'm hoping I can illustrate some of the stuff that I was going through in my head and just throughout the whole process using memes. So we're just gonna look at that together.
Oh, that's real nice.
This next process, rigging, was really complicated for me. If you guys don't know what rigging is, so Rigging is basically adding bones to your model so you can eventually pose it and stuff. But the process of applying those bones on can get a little difficult, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. I chose a lot more simpler way of doing it. So yeah, I learned a lot of this process through a YouTuber named Joey Carlino. Again, I'll leave a couple of his videos that I used and his channel below. And they were really helpful. They were funny, very like artistic, and just overall very creative. I really liked it. If you really want to like learn rigging or Blender specifically, I would definitely check those videos out. But yeah, the rigging part took me a while to do. I would say it took me about a week, maybe 2 weeks to do, just because there were some parts I had to actually go back to, because as you notice, there are parts that would pop out and I wouldn't understand why. Maybe I'd have to adjust it. I would try and look up some forums, figure out why that was happening. But ultimately, to my not disappointment, but unfortunately I couldn't find the information that I needed. There were also other times where I accidentally added too many bones to one part, and when you pair the bone to a part or an object, it would pair to one bone, and then when you go pose it later, you might select one of the bones and not the one that had the object to it. So ultimately I had to go back, fix things, and this was a lot of adjusting. And at the end of the day, the rig kind of worked like this. But anyways, I think it still turned out okay. I was able to pose and get the model to do what I was trying to do. Even though the rig was a little janky, it worked. I got it to pose and got it to what I needed it to do. And I feel like you gotta take your first baby steps. So that's why I learned how to do a walk cycle. Kick it! Yeah, so if you don't know, a walk cycle is basically when you have your character start, when you're first animating, you're gonna first have them do like a walk cycle, which is testing the bones work, the rig works fine, how the character will move, the fluidity of parts and all that jazz. Again, I'm self-taught, I don't know the terminology, but I understand it to a certain degree, and I'm willing to learn. Please help me. Yeah, so when I first did the walk cycle, I didn't understand anatomy, and I didn't understand how things were supposed to go. So if you look at the video, there are a lot of parts just coming out everywhere. There wasn't a lot of like physics involved, like the head wasn't bouncing per se, the hips weren't going up and down. There wasn't any like weight to them, which I wanted because this is a giant golem. This is supposed to have a lot of weight and a lot of just oomph behind a step. So if you look during the second part around, when I do a second version of the walkthrough, I go back and look up some, I hate to say this, some bigger fellows who like have a lot of power in their steps, and I try to replicate it and copy it between each frames per second. I believe this is like I think 24 frames a second. Yeah, I think 24 frames a second. And yeah, as you can see, it's a lot more fluid, a lot more power behind it. It looks a lot more natural, but still kind of robotic and like static to a certain degree, which I was happy with. I would have done another version, but again, I was looking at what day it was and the time, and it was getting late. I didn't want to stay up for too long, and I just didn't want to spend another month trying to figure out how I can do more. So I worked on some camera movements and added some shake to add the effect of power behind him. In the final animation, you'll see that like little jitterness, camera jitter here and there.
I'm crab walking.
I'm high kicking.
I'm a crab walking.
And I feel like I was missing a real important part about the animation, and that was having the stuff in the animation, just not the character itself. I think it was cool, but I think I wanted to challenge myself some more and add details that would really spice up the scene and just the animation. And you may ask yourself, Jared, what kind of props go well with a Tundra golem per se? Well, how about some? So I started making assets. And for you guys who don't know what assets are, they are extra props in the scene that just give it more flavor. Like spices, if you're down for spices, if you're down to go to Flavor Town. And again, assets, you have to make the models all individually, but you have to make models for these assets and then duplicate them, and then depending on the scene, you might want to add 1, 5, 6 trees, whatever. I decided to make 2 versions of the trees using 2 different tutorials. One that used more of a hand-painted texture, and one that involved making objects to make textures and using nodes. The node system is fun, I would say, very complex for someone who does not grasp the wiring of like connecting the dots and such. So yeah, I made 2 different trees. I used both of them. I didn't make a forest per se, just to add a little bit of spice to the scene. Like it's a barren place, and there's a couple trees around. You know, not a forest, because I feel like my computer would explode. But you also ask yourself, what does a tundra golem also need? And I would say snow. Yeah, I'm missing snow. Why didn't I think of that? Snow is quite important for something that should be in the tundra, right? So for this next part, I basically made a snow simulation using another tutorial that I'll leave down in the description if you guys want to look at that. So basically it's snowing kind of like a snowstorm-ish. There's also a little bit of fog that I added. So I also eventually made snow on the ground by using a fluid simulation, one of the simulations. And this is where it started messing up, because my computer was running slower and it was lagging. And there were supposed to be footsteps as soon as he took a crunch, but I couldn't figure out for the life of me, even with all the tutorials, even with trying to find stuff online, why it wasn't working. And I eventually left it as is in the final cut. And now, for what no one was waiting for, the final animation. Yeah, so as you guys can see, it's just a 4-second clip. It just keeps rerunning. I would say I was trying to go for a moonlight lit night, couldn't figure out how to do the background. I really wanted like a bluish dark sky with a white light in the back with a little hints of blue key lights. I think lighting is gonna hurt me the most because I really don't understand the concept, and I'm gonna try and learn. But if you guys think this was helpful, if you guys enjoyed this, didn't like it, give it a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down. I don't really mind. And if you want to see more, just let me know. So anyways, this is my first animation, and this is why it sucks. Hopefully more projects I produce later become better and better over time, and just a learning experience. All right guys, cheers, take care, bye.